is travel chaos for thousands of people today. And although it is a southeast issue primarily, it is going to affect not only people across the country, but actually across the world, because Heathrow Airport has been shut down for the whole day.
Yes, there's a fire at a nearby electrical substation, and that's caused a mass power outage, disrupting flights right around the world and, of course, across the UK.
Well, a Heathrow spokesperson has confirmed the airport is going to be closed until at least midnight tonight and said passengers should brace for significant disruption over the coming days because of the closure.
And meanwhile, National Rail has said that all trains to and from Heathrow, well, they've also been cancelled.
I mean, it's absolute chaos. There's only one person to talk to, and that is travel correspondent Simon Calder, who will be absolutely across this. It's not only what has happened, Simon, it's the impact that this is going to have for quite some time, it would seem.
Absolutely, Stephen, yes. So we have well over 200,000 passengers coming in and out of Heathrow on what is the busiest day of the week at Europe's busiest airport. More than 1,300 flights are due to be flying in or out. We're already seeing large-scale diversions. For instance, British Airways, their incoming flights from Cape Town, from Singapore, from Johannesburg, from Lagos, landing at Gatwick Airport, which is relatively good news for the people who are going to be thinking, well, at least I'm in the right place. Of course, that is then going to put enormous pressure on Gatwick, where they weren't expecting this, and therefore they've only got the usual number of baggage handlers and UK border force. So it's going to be very busy there. Other people arriving in Shannon in the west of Ireland, beautiful place, but not where you want to be as you leave the plane bleary-eyed, wondering how you're going to get to your destination. And of course, British Airways, with more than 50% of the flights desperately trying to figure out what they are doing. Can you believe they were actually significantly after Heathrow told everybody they were closed, BA was still selling tickets for flights today. They've now told everybody, look, we can't fly you today. We don't know when we will be able to fly you. And let's hope very much that the airport gets back into normal operation tomorrow. But even then, you're going to have planes, pilots, passengers stranded in various parts of the world. It will take certainly the rest of the weekend before people are where they need to be.
I mean, I think a lot of people listening to this and certainly watching the pictures of that explosion, some witnesses have said it was an explosion, and now it's a huge fire, and now it's causing a mass outage. A lot of people's reaction will be, how come a whole airport as big as Heathrow can be completely cut off by one electricity substation going wrong?
Well, Heathrow, of course, uses an enormous amount of power. Everything from the runway lights to IT works on electricity. It's very, very demanding. Yes, this is critical national infrastructure, Anne, of course, and therefore there will be people who are saying, well, hang on, you've got to have more backups. But you can see from the scale of the fire that this is fairly unprecedented. There will obviously be a big inquiry into what caused the fire in the first place, because this is just causing immense economic and emotional harm to an awful lot of people. The cost to the airlines will run very quickly into the tens of millions of pounds. And of course, it's unquantifiable if you've got a family wedding that you were planning to fly to, or a holiday of a lifetime, or a really important business trip. It's impossible to quantify the emotional impact as well.
I mean, I can't remember, Simon, you will know. Have we seen an airport as big as Heathrow, or said something similar in the UK, being shut down for a whole day before? Because it seems extraordinary that they very quickly said, you know, this has happened, it's going to be closed until at least midnight.
Yeah, I mean, they would have done that proactively, so at least everybody knew where they stood. The last thing they want is tens of thousands of people turning up at Heathrow and expecting to be flown. And so it's really difficult to tell whether this was an abundance of caution or whether, as the Heathrow statement possibly suggests, that they are really worried that this could continue for several days. It really does also emphasise just how little slack there is in the system, because of course we've got not just the world's busiest two-runway airport, Heathrow, not operating today, we've got the world's busiest single runway airport, London Gatwick. I'm just looking to see other planes being diverted to places like Paris, to Amsterdam. I mean, if you Birmingham is looking very popular among the airlines, and plenty of flights have actually just been flown elsewhere. I've actually got here in Glasgow, from where I'm speaking to you, British Airways and Virgin Atlantic from New York are going to be touching down here. BA from New York heading to Manchester. And would you believe the British Airways flight from Accra has landed in lovely Lyon in France, which is great, except that then causes all manner of problems, because Ghanaians won't necessarily have the right visas for admission into France. So it's just awful. Here we have Air India from Delhi going to Frankfurt, same with Gulf Air from Bahrain, and well, there's even passengers on one of the overnight New York flights from BA in Reykjavik in Iceland. So it's it's going to be an absolute mess for British Airways, and indeed for many other passengers. And my goodness, just looking at the scale of this, it looks as though BA's operation, even if, and let's hope, everything switches back on, it's going to take days to get people where they need to be. I'm so sorry about that.
I was going to say, Simon, how do you even begin to? I mean, even if people landing in Glasgow, at least they're in the right country. How does BA even begin to try to get people to where they need to be? I mean, that sounds like absolute carnage.
Right. Okay. So on those flights coming in, let's say that the Virgin Atlantic and British Airways flights coming into Glasgow, if and most of the people on those flights will probably be just wanting to get to London, and they can hop off and onto the trains leaving every hour, which are going to be a little bit crowded, but at least people will, by tea time, get where they need to be. It is really those diversions that are taking people to points in Europe where half the passengers won't be legally entitled to enter those countries because they were never expecting to go there. And of course, pilots are running out of hours, cabin crew have limited time, and so they are going to be landing there. They won't be able to move to anywhere else for a while. Hotels in those locations are going to fill up very, very quickly, because the whole operation is designed that you get people on and through Heathrow as quickly as you can. It's most of the time a pretty well-tuned machine, but when it stops, particularly when it stops in the middle of the night, when you've got 120 flights aiming for Heathrow, it gets very messy very quickly.
I mean, traditionally, if you like, in sort of chaotic situations like this, sometimes airlines and airports are very bad at communication with the ordinary passengers. How are people being contacted at the moment? If you're due to go to Heathrow today, what do you do? If you're due to go anywhere, frankly, and even by rail, what do you do, and who should you be hearing from, or should you be proactive and contacting them?
Please don't try and contact them, because you're going to just spend hours on the phone and nobody will talk to you. Let me give you an example. 4 o'clock this morning, I decided to ensure that British Airways wasn't selling tickets. To my horror, I discovered that actually it was selling tickets. I managed to buy a flight for later on today from Glasgow to Heathrow. Obviously, that flight isn't going to be operating. And I then got a message in from British Airways saying, we're very sorry, your flight isn't going, and actually we don't know quite when you are going to be traveling. It's the airline is I mean, it's going to be absolute chaos. Anybody who is able, for instance, if you're stranded in Europe, you're watching this somewhere and you can find a hotel, just book yourself in there, send British Airways the bill if your credit card will bear it. The BA are saying, if you're traveling to and from British Airways today, please do not travel to the airport until you have checked your flight status. We're closely monitoring the situation and we'll update BA travel news as soon as we can.
Simon, for people who, because obviously if you're going long haul somewhere, people may travel quite a long way to fly out of Heathrow. If they're already there, if they've come the night before or travelled through the night, what are their options? Okay,
so here we have the situation where you have maybe arrived because you've got an important holiday of a lifetime. You're flying off first thing. I'm afraid you probably just stay in your hotel. All the hotel rooms in Heathrow are going to be very heavily booked, but you will not be travelling anywhere on any airline from Heathrow today. It is conceivable that you might find Virgin Atlantic, for instance, can operate some of its network from Manchester, but that looks highly unlikely, just organising the check-in and the baggage and everything else. So look, I'm so sorry. If your travel plans today or this weekend involve Heathrow, then you have to assume you will not be travelling.
But does that mean if you are putting yourself up in accommodation when you wouldn't expect to be, there will be at some point in the future a way of claiming back that money?
Oh yes, if you're in the UK or if you're in Europe, air passenger rights rules are perfectly clear. The big problem is actually for people in North America, in Asia, in Dubai, places like that, flying on non-European, non-UK airlines. So if you're not on BA or Virgin Atlantic, then actually those rights don't apply, and you will find that actually you are stuck at your own expense.
But just to reiterate, you say, I mean, it's not just flights that are affected. Railways serving Heathrow, for instance, are also going to be affected. Roads, there's going to be blocked up roads, I suppose, where you're turned away instead of being able to go into or anywhere near Heathrow. It's going to affect all sorts of travel.
It is, I'm afraid, yes. This has happened at the worst possible time. Yes, on the, I haven't yet checked, but the Great Western Railway goes very close to where the fire is. That connects London Paddington with the west of England and South Wales. OK, look, Simon, for now, thank you very much indeed. It's a worrying picture. The fact that, so Heathrow is down, and of course, as we always know with these situations, it's down for the day, but that doesn't mean everything's back to normal tomorrow. Chaos for anyone wanting to travel today, who should be travelling today. But the disruption is going to take days and days and days to clear, because it's always the case. We're going to keep you fully up to date.